Doctors change lives every day, but what happens when life changes yours? A single injury, a sudden illness. Your career, your income, your future can shift in an instant. The best physicians don't just plan for success, they protect it. At Set for Life Insurance, they believe financial security isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. True own occupation disability insurance ensures that no matter what happens, your future stays in your hands. Because protecting your income means protecting everything you've built. Visit drpodcastnetwork.co/set4life today. Secure your future before life makes the choice for you.
Not a good look for our profession.
How in the name of common sense did this ever get this far? Vaccines are not seek and destroy missions.
Because he was so severe.
This is nuts.
One of the top 20 things that she has discovered with her research company, Progenobiome, medicine has been corrupted. Where we go from here now, I don't know. Well, it doesn't work.
So angry. Punishable jail time.
Literally, this makes me believe we live in the Matrix.
Like, deadliest year in U.S. history.
It wasn't a question of if, but when.
This first red.
If it doesn't work and it's safe, put it in a little Fauci Pez dispenser, give it to the patient, and shut the family up.
It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
He gave Fauci an award for being a hero of the pandemic.
This has been a problem.
These were lies.
Let's talk about the healthcare professionals supporting this.
In the meantime, what was going on behind the scenes?
Irony of the whole thing is,
Harvey's 100% correct.
This is freaking annoying.
Ultimately, we need to have hope for America.
What is going on here? What has poisoned your mind? Buckle up, kids.
Well, hello, Hattie. Welcome to BS Free MD, and thank you so much for being here. I'm excited. So is Tim for this conversation.
Me
Big
too.
topic. Yes. Wow, so much to talk about, and so many different avenues. And so let's just dive right in. I'm gonna just throw this out there and let's talk about your statement about it's almost impossible to die in America today, which we would agree with. Well, so let's discuss that. What do you mean by that? What thoughts?
Well, our grandmothers and grandfathers had the privilege of leaving, as you know, with things like pneumonia. It was called the old man's best friend. But during World War II, penicillin was perfected, and it came into the commercial market, or became available to us right after World War II. So no one is allowed to die gently, sweetly, peacefully, like our grandmothers used to, because we have come up with medicine, devices, tricks, surgeries, all kinds of, everybody knows the complexity of medicine. So whereas our grandmothers could leave sweetly, gently in their sleep, we're not allowed to do that. And the reason, well, it's super complicated. First of all, the $5 trillion medical industrial complex is very motivated to keep us all here. You all, your physicians, you make money taking care of me. You do not make money when I die. So a piece of it is money. A huge piece of it is money. And the dark side of the money is medicine that you do to protect your institution from being sued. So there's defense, there's aggressive medicine that pays all the fancy for the machines and all the fancy schmancy stuff that goes on, Dr. Tim, in your ER, and then take an extension of that to the ICU. That's where 90% of the money gets spent. And many of us are ending up there because of the steps that we are put through in our hyper-medicalized culture. So it's hard to die. For the money piece, the industry that's taking care of us is motivated to keep us alive. All the pharmaceuticals are very happy to keep giving us medicine. They don't want us to die because they want us to be a patient forever, right? They want us to take medicine forever. So then there's the personal side, and that is you're not allowed to say to your family, I'm dying. I mean, I went, and maybe you all did too, when Senator McCain was diagnosed with a glioblastoma. A living president, Obama, Bush, everybody came out in the headlines. Well, he's a fighter. He's going to beat it. No, he's not going to beat it. And so we have this culture of we're Americans, we're rich, we have solutions, and you do not have to die here. So this culture of thing, you're forced to fight. You're not allowed to say, I've heard the diagnosis, it's difficult. I'm actually not interested in the trajectory of the medicine, of the procedures that people are going to put me through. I would rather go to the Bahamas or Bermuda and sit on the beach and drink, I'll choose right now, Grey Goose, whatever, right? And I tell people all the time, I'm not taking chemotherapy. My cocktail is Grey Goose straight up with an olive on the side. And so my point is, we're not allowed to die because there's too much money in it and there's cultural pressure. Like I said, we're Americans. We have solutions. We can save you. Every person who gets sick, they go to their family and they go, okay, well, what are all the choices? What are they telling you we can do? Okay, we're here to help you. They're not here. Your family is not here to support you in no treatment. They get they get a big notebook. Let's go to all your appointments with you. Let's track everything they say you need to do. We're going to do it. We're going to put you on that diet, blah, 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 blah. So the point to me is, and I say this in my class all the time, we're not allowed to die sweetly, gently, gracefully. We are propped up and all the big organs. And this is where all the money is. Cardiology. All of a sudden I was getting phrenology, which is the kidneys, right? Help me, guys. The
neurology,
phrenology, pulmonology, cardiology, and then the oncologist on top of that. So these 5 big categories, they are very invested in us living forever. And once your primary care doctor sends you to one of those, they get a hold of you and never let you go. And I don't teach that. I teach you got to go back to your primary care doctor. You got to get a lead level. You got to get to the 30,000 feet. You got to hear all the choices because that particular physician is only interested, let's take the heart, in your heart. They don't care about the rest of your life. And I care as an advocate for healthcare. I care that there's great medicine available to all of us to give us a beautiful life. And I'm a whole person. I'm not a patient. I'm Hattie. I don't want patient care. I want Hattie care. And that's what I teach people who take my class. You deserve personal, holistic care. And you're not going to get it unless you ask for it. And that's what I teach. So we can't die. We're not allowed to die. Money and culture. Those are the 2 big categories that are pressing against us.
we totally agree with all of that. And, looking back on our careers that started over 30 some years ago in family practice, both, where we did the small town family practice, the whole care, took care of people in the hospital. We were the quarterback of the patient and the patient's family and the team. And so people would be sick and go to the oncologist. And you're right. It was like their view is do all I can because I'm the oncologist. I'm supposed to fight the cancer. And then people would come back to us and they'd say, well, what do you think? Like they told me I have to do this chemo treatment, blah, blah, blah. Is it worth it? And so that's when, we could actually sit down and say, this is your odds really. Mm-hmm. It's, 5%, 10%. Yeah, do it. Do the chemo because it's, it's worth it versus you're just going to be tortured and have a slow, miserable death. But now so that was then. Right. Things have changed like we were talking about before we started recording. Family practice is not like that anymore. They're not the quarterback. They're the quarterback in referral. I mean, you got 7 minutes, like we said, to see a
you're
patient.
a triagealist.
Yes.
That's the problem.
It's like, oh, you got a cardiac problem. You're going to the cardiologist. Oh, you got this problem. They don't look at integrate the whole thing anymore. I mean, you almost need a naturopathic doctor to do that. Right. It's all driven by specialty care, which all they care about is fixing their system, their heart problem, their kidney, whatever system. And it's a money-making pharmaceutical bag. I mean, what do we do?
But it's amazing
for the patient.
It's amazing how as much as I hate this term because it's so overused, but the siloed care is unbelievably dangerous if you don't have an advocate. And actually, I'm tempted because we live in Sarasota now. I'm tempted to start a business that's just health advocacy, like just dealing with Like being the person that looks out the door of the airplane before you jump and says, okay, we're going to land over there because we can see it now. You can't see it when you're on the road. You can see it when you're in the airplane. And, I'll start with a story with regards to my mother. My mother was 92 years old. She was in COVID jail because so the last 2 years of her life were COVID jail, which was worse in Canada. So my brother and I live in the United States. When she finally passed away, we couldn't go to her funeral. So I'm watching it on an iPad, weeping by myself. It was absolute cruelty. I could not hold her hand in the last, several months of her life, go visit, nothing. Okay. So, but it gets worse. So she gets admitted to the hospital and they diagnose her with probably pancreatic cancer, but worse off, she has a gallbladder that's infected. So she has an infected gallbladder. Okay. She's frail. She's 92 years old. She probably has a cancer diagnosis. There's no way in the world you can do surgery, which is the only thing that's going to treat an infected gallbladder. So what happens? She's kind of conscious. She's not sure exactly on the directives. She starts to kind of lose consciousness. Every time a new hospitalist comes in, they start antibiotics. Well, so she perks up a little bit. My sister's like, I don't think we really want to do this.
Right.
Well, and then they stop the antibiotics. The next hospitalist comes on. They're so scared of killing her that they keep doing this. And I'm in Oregon, like pounding. I'm like, stop the madness. She lived an amazing life. This is a terminal diagnosis. Do you know how awesome it is to have an infection and just drift away? Like this.
That was my point. We used to be able to do that.
This is not a bad day. Finally, literally by the grace of God, she wakes up enough and she says, absolutely no more treatment. The only drug you're going to give me is morphine. Perfect. She wakes up. I talk to her on Easter Sunday morning. The next Saturday, she passes away. Finally, after we tortured her with antibiotics. Right. How is that possible?
Right. One nurse told me, I taught my class on Zoom during COVID, and I had hundreds of nurses from all over the country take my class. And one said, she gave me this quote. She said, "We treat until we kill."
Boy, that's a great quote.
It was a nurse. And I didn't make it up because I'm not a nurse and I'm not a physician. I just gathered this data and we all just sort of gasped. Everybody in the class, probably 30 nurses online, they went, that's right. That's what we do. So and that's what happened with your mama. And had she not roused up enough energy, and this is what I say to people, when we're seriously ill and frail, even if we're not that old, if we're seriously ill, because we've been getting so much medicine and so much has been done to us, it's hard for us to rally and object to what's being done to us by the professionals. We just sort of sit there and go, okay, unless we have the advocate. And unfortunately, her physician son was kept from being at her side. And I was just so sad for her because I was thinking, look, all she poured into you to become a physician. And it would have been so sweet for you to be at her side and tell her that her body is now going. I don't know if she was a person of faith, but she's going into her forever with Jesus, and this is so beautiful. And I'm happy for you, Mom. I don't want you to leave, but Jesus is bringing you over. That's what's going on.
Well, and we had that conversation. Yeah. It was unbelievably moving. It was amazing, and I'm glad that I got that. It was
on the phone or on the iPad. Yeah.
So
right. I don't know if this works. Let's see. But to your point about, this is in my book, and the hospitalist is way up here. When you're in, I know, you can, anyway, this is medicine today. And here's the poor lay person like me who is not in the system. And these are the people that are surrounding and trying to take care of me. And it's confusing.
Yes. Well, so let's talk about, within that Mary situation, Tim's mom, when she's in and out, of consciousness for that little bit, and that, you know, everyone keep the new hospitalists come in, and like you talk about, it's medical legal, they got to try, you know, be the hero and try something new at all costs, even though, I mean, it seems ridiculous.
Well, did you have
why don't,
go ahead.
you know, when patients can't speak for themselves, until she finally did, why aren't the wishes of the family respected? You know, we sort of know what we think on our end. I mean, there's a whole pile of legal documents and things that are different here than in Canada, but talk about that, like why the families vocalization.
That's exactly what I teach people. And there's something in this country called an advance directive, and it was put into law in 1990 due to the famous Nancy Cruzan case in Missouri. But anyway, we don't have to go back to history. But the point is, the Congress made a law that said, if you are a patient, your physician must give you, must tell you what they're going to do to you, and you must give informed consent. So I have to, as the layperson, tell the smart doctors, you two, Dr. Tim and Dr. May, you know more about, but the Congress took that away, and I understand it but this is where we are. So you can't do anything to me if I can't speak for myself without me giving you consent. However, if I can't give you consent, you're required by law to keep me alive. Now, the only way to stop that is an advance directive that is in writing. And that's what I teach people. We create one at the end of our class. We take 6 weeks to do this. And we lay out for the person who can't speak for, if I can't speak for myself, these are the instructions. And we name a durable power of attorney for healthcare, so that Dr. Tim, you've got somebody in your ER, and ideally you've looked through my wallet or something, and you found I have in my wallet a card that says, call my durable power of attorney for healthcare. She is Fallon. This is her phone number. So you could call her and say, I've got Miss Hattie here. What am I supposed to do? This is the situation. That's ideal, but I'm an expert in this. And a lot of people have, and if you go back, and I know this will not be a test, but on my website, I talk about the fact that my mom had a living will. My dad had put it together, documents done with legal people or through his financial planning people. He was not a wealthy man, but he did what people told him to do. He was the named durable power of attorney for healthcare. So my mother had instructions in writing. Classic example, no one saw them.
Right.
Because
that's what commonly happens.
It happens probably 100 times a day in every hospital in America, and there are 5,000. So what is that? 50,000 people? Did I do that right? A lot of people right now are being treated unlike they don't want that. But you all have to do it in this country because you are required to keep me alive unless I provide instructions to do something different, right?
Right.
So the only way you can leave here really sweetly with dignity, grace, and ease is to have very clear instructions provided to, here's the key, the person who has the ability to act on your instructions. And we spend a lot of time on choosing your proxy. I don't recommend you choose your spouse or your children. There's too much emotion. I studied at the University of California School of Gerontology, Graduate School of Gerontology, and one of my professors took care of 100 dying patients a week. That was his workload. And he said, when someone's dying, there's no such thing as a functional family. So if you name someone in the family, they're all going, all right. So the point we were trying to make here is I, as an individual human being, American citizen, layperson, I am up against the $5 trillion medical industrial complex. And in order for me to have a chance of getting what I want, I have to put in writing specifically, how you are to treat me when I'm not able to speak for myself. And if I can't, the person has to be chosen very carefully. And it's tricky because people sort of freak out in my class. Well, my son will do this. And people say, everybody knows what I want. Everybody knows I don't want to be kept alive on machines. Guess what? our data shows in America, we will spend $200 billion on the last 6 months of people's lives, and at the end of those 6 months, they're all dead. So people are getting aggressive care with machines in ICUs, even though their families, they say, everybody knows I don't want to be kept alive on machines. Well, what's going on? You're being kept alive on machines.
Yeah, but if you don't,
it comes down to the enacting that, right? Because maybe people tell their family that maybe they've gone all the way and they have their documents, so the living will, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, but nothing's going to happen if, okay, so you end up in the hospital and then you forget where those documents are. The person you've appointed doesn't think to ask because stuff's going on. It doesn't get, so how many times have I gone to the hospital, had a surgery, my doctor's office, like, they ask the question, do you have these documents? I'm like, yeah. Is it here? No. So it just doesn't get it.
How many times did it happen? May's sister is a former ICU nurse, and she has a fabulous job now, but what drove her out of the ICU was COVID. And she said, we had these every single day they would have some 85-year-old person with a laundry list of comorbid conditions, intubated, ventilated, absolutely not a damn thing you can do for them. And these poor nurses are, normally that's one-on-one care. Sometimes they have 3 patients they're taking care of. They're all paralyzed. They're all ventilated. They know they're going to die. And every time they get a new ICU doctor back in, ramp up the interventions. We can't let them die. And it's just like,
well, I was going to say,
it's just craziness.
It's a different legal thing too. They can legally deny the written documents there. In certain cases.
In Canada.
In Canada.
Not okay. In this country, if I walk in, if May's in your ICU, Dr. Tim, and I am her durable power of attorney for healthcare, and I walk in and say, and what I teach people is I ask these questions. Is May going to be able to feed herself when she gets out of here? Is she going to be able to walk? Is she going to be able to toilet herself? Is she going to be able to take a shower? If the answer is no to any of these questions, then we're done here, sir. We're done here. You undo. And I take the liability because she has named me to speak for her. That's how it works here. And the questions of what I just said are very unique to my teaching. In other words, most advanced directives say, talk about treatment. Should we give her blood transfusion? Should we intubate? Those are not my questions. My questions for May, my girlfriend, who's named me her durable power of attorney for healthcare. She has told me in her instructions that she gave to me in writing that unless she's able to do these things, when you get done with her, she doesn't want you to do any more to her. We want comfort care now, sir. So I'm going to take her away from here, and you are out. You're not going to be liably, you're not going to be guilty for killing her.
So let's talk about what happens in a situation like that. Now, if someone were to do that legally, when the hospital's saying no, the
hospital has no rights. You, the patient, have rights, and
correct.
This is what I keep trying to say to my people that are taking my class. You're their customer. You have rights. Now, the law is protecting them because it needs to. I understand that you need as physicians to be protected from family members suing you or suing the hospital. But I have in writing, May gave me in writing her instructions. I am to follow. She is in charge. She is the customer. You are delivering a service, and we have to see if your service is what she wants to consume. She's in charge of this. She's in the driver's seat. When she names me her durable power of attorney for healthcare, I'm going to get her what she would get for herself if she could speak for herself.
Okay. So situations where whatever hospitalist X, who's like an arrogant kind of cowboy that's going to save the world, says, "Yeah, I don't care what that is, but this is what we're doing."
Well, then it's assault.
I'm just saying, legally,
that's criminal,
right? So, what are the options for the person that's the power of attorney? Do then.
You go to the hospital administrator. I was a volunteer in a big hospital. You may have heard of the Oxner system in New Orleans, and I volunteered there as a patient advocate. And what that meant is when you came in as a patient, within a few hours, I would stop by your room when I was working that day, and I would say, I am representing the patient service office, and we are separate from everything, and you are free to call us if you're not getting what you want. And so that's one group in that hospital, and every hospital has a patient services whatever. And so I would go to the patient, I would go out to the nurse's station. If Dr. Tim would not follow my instructions that were given to me by you, I go out to the nurse's station. I say, who's in charge of this whole unit? Where do I go? They would probably send me to this office of patient care advocacy. And I would say, Dr. Tim is not listening. I am the durable power. I am in charge of her. She can't speak for herself. You must let her out of here. I'm taking her home. I am taking her to my house, or whatever our plan we put in place. She's not staying here. However, I want a handshake to make sure she gets the care that we want for her, which is palliative. She may not qualify for big, probably she would, because in this country, capital H hospice is the benefit. You have to be within 6 months. Supposedly you're supposed to be dead in 6 months, but of course, Jimmy Carter was on it for 4 years, I think, hospice care. So there's ways to get around that. But the point is, you're going to go home or to some comfort setting. You're getting out of this, all these lights, all this stuff, all these IVs, all this stuff being done. You stop. I'm taking her home. I'm responsible for her care. You're not.
So there are any situations when all those legal documents don't protect our end of life wishes?
The big idea, if I have your signature and I have my ID and it's a document that we create in class. In fact, one of my physician friends here in Florida says that, what we're doing here is even more than we need. And that is, I name the person. I say, or you name me, I name Hattie, and that backup for Hattie is here. I sign it. I walk in with that. You're the patient. I'm the advocate. They have to do what I say. Now, can you understand why choosing your advocate is the most important decision you make?
Exactly.
Because if you had me, May, you'd get what you told me to do.
Right.
Now, your sister,
if I have him,
maybe not. And this is crazy because physicians confess to me. My mother's dying. I can't. In fact, I have a physician who took my class who is a pediatrician. She has 2 sons who are both physicians. She did not name either of them as her durable power of attorney for healthcare. She named a daughter-in-law married to another son who's a banker. She said, my physician sons would try to keep me alive. Mm-hmm. And, but the problem that we have as those who want to articulate our care goals is we don't take it seriously. We don't realize we need to do it. And then we end up with the default. If you go to the attorney's office here in this country, they'll just default to your spouse. And then after that, they'll default to your children. Then after that, your sister, your siblings, whatever. I don't agree with that. Now, it's possible that your spouse could do it. But my dad, Mr. Macho, he melted down. He couldn't, and if you read C.S. Lewis, I give a quote from C.S. Lewis when we talk about this proxy situation. When the love of your life for 55 years is in Dr. Tim's ICU bed, you're looking at Dr. Tim and you're hoping that he can save her. You're hoping that when Dr. May comes in, she's going to do something. My dad watched my mother deteriorate for 6 weeks. Didn't ask a question, and so I had to intervene. I wasn't the named durable power of attorney, he was. But he couldn't do his job. Why? C.S. Lewis says the death of a beloved is like an amputation.
Yes.
So watching this beloved person, it could be your child, it could be your spouse, it could be your mom, boys and their moms. Oh my gosh. Moms should not name their sons. So watching this happen, C.S. Lewis is like amputation. So think about amputations. Think about Civil War movies. Think about when a soldier's injured and they get brought into the Civil War hospital. They give them a swig of whiskey, a white rag to chop down on, and they slowly saw off the leg. That's how your beloved feels when you're dying. So why would you make them do this? They've got to be cognizant. They have to focus. They have to ask your questions. The questions that I have to serve May, if she's named me, are specific. And I have to have my wits about me and not be emotional. She's my dear friend, and she trusted me to do this, and I can do it. That's the person you need.
Yes.
And we have a whole list of qualities that we look at. The person that you choose needs to have these qualities. They have to be willing to speak for you. They have to be able to negotiate with physicians, can stand up to family members who may not agree with you, can listen to the facts, make a rational decision, can calmly manage conflicts, can separate their personal desires from you. I don't want to lose my girlfriend, May. I don't want to lose her. She's been in my life a long time. But you know what? She told me to do this. And I'm going to do it for her. So, go ahead.
No, I look at this and I just think from a service industry perspective. Is anyone a professional health advocate?
Well, I'm trying. Well, I'm not. I don't get paid for it. I give it all away. But no, not really. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think that exists out there.
But shouldn't it?
No, but from my
we have
perspective,
financial planners that put
right.
our money where it's supposed to,
Well, you hit on something, because we go to our attorney, they fill out these forms, and they, just like you already pointed out, they stay back in the file cabinet. They don't make it to the hospital with you. The wrong person is named. The other thing that I talk about, and this goes back to the first question you said, why does it take so long to die? Why are we not allowed to die in this country? Because our culture says no one's going to die. And so therefore we go to the attorney, we do the documents that go in the file folder, and then we're done. Then when we're in crisis, it's not there. Right.
Right.
So the advocate, Dr. Tim, it's almost as if, and this is my friend, Dr. Leonard Hawk here in Winter Park. He is a palliative care physician, and he works in a hospital, and he has 18 to 20 patients a day that he sees, and they're all in the ICU, and it's all about doing what you're talking about. What you do sometimes in the ICU when you've got somebody and you say, well, this is the trajectory, and they just say, well, just keep me comfortable, sir. I don't want all that. And he does. So palliative care inside of hospitals is where you get that help. Right. But it's hard to come by, because why? Because the big 5 doctors don't want to let the palliative team in. Oh no, we're going to try this. Oh, we're going to try that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And so and on my card, I'm going to lean over so I can show this to you. But I give people in my class like a wallet card, and it says, if I land in the hospital, I want a palliative care consult the minute I get there. I don't care what the situation is. If I end up in the hospital, I want palliative there at the same time that the ICU guys are there.
Now, right? For some people, that's going to be tough, because it can be obviously the slippery slope. You're in the hospital because you fell and broke your hip, and they're like, you're elderly, right. But they're like, we're going to pin you. We're going to be out of here.
But Dr. May, the reason I want palliative is maybe there's something else going on. Why did I fall? I mean, what? Okay, so
right. But most people aren't thinking that, right? It's like, oh, I've got this. I showed up in the ER, my heart's beating irregularly. They're gonna like investigate, maybe do all that thing, and so it's like a slippery slope of, well, now this is happening. Oh, your hip's broken. Oh, darn, you just got pneumonia while you're in here. Okay, we'll throw you on some antibiotics and we'll treat the pneumonia. Then we'll get you next.
The reason I want the palliative.
Yeah. Right. So people don't think that, though, and some people do, but unless you've got a lot of background medical knowledge in medicine, what kills people, the broken hip. But people think, oh, I broke my hip. How's that going to kill? So what would prompt most people, I think, to want to carry that card and go, second I get in the hospital, I'm going to ask about the palliative care options?
Because palliative is on your team no matter what. Palliative doesn't want to kill you. Palliative is basically, in my view right now, the only feet on the ground that take the place of that primary care physician that does not have the attending privileges. If we had you 30 years ago and I'm your patient, I end up at the hospital, you go in and you advocate for me as a whole person. The palliative team is the hospitalist is the primary care doctor for me, but that's not.
You're right.
It doesn't work because they are bowing to everything else. The palliative, to me, is the primary care team on the ground in a hospital.
Well, now that's a good point, and I would like to use that as a clip because people hear palliative care team and think of palliation, which is comfort measures, which is taking care of you as you're about to die. And so people think, well, I'm going in the hospital. I don't want to, but that, right? Right?
I tell people I broke my knee 10 years ago, and when it's cold and wet, I palliate with Advil. You know, palliative care is what we all want all the time.
Right.
And it's just that when a cardiologist gets a hold of us, they don't want a palliative physician. They don't want anybody in their space. And that's why I have to ask for it, because the team that's in place to give me standard care that I don't want, they're not going to ask palliative. They're not going to ask palliative until
no, because palliative was associated with death, dying, comfort, and the internist, the family practice doc making the rounds, the hospitalist is supposed to palliate the patient with the appropriate care, physical therapy, medicine, whatever. But that doesn't happen, and people don't realize that.
Right. And so another chart, I don't know.
So that's a really good tip. I mean,
right. And I don't know why I didn't send you some books before we talked, but I'm trying to get this in here. But there's this chart. How do I do this? Okay. So this is the new medicine, and that is okay, here we go. When we have a serious diagnosis, we want palliative care modalities at the same time the curative team is working on us. We want it all together, right?
Right.
And then that gets us probably out of aggressive care faster. Probably, not necessarily, but I want everything modern medicine has to offer me as soon as I get a serious diagnosis. I would never leave myself in the care of one specialist category ever.
So I have a question. Just thinking back to confusing countries, laws and practices is probably not helpful to the listeners here, but I know how things have worked down here. I mean, I was back in Canada. My dad ended up in the hospital, sadly, for 3 weeks last year, 2 years ago, and I went up there to help be the advocate because it's even worse up there. Now, there's often social work becomes the palliative. So in the U.S. System, how much does a social work team basically get involved and do that, where they come in and they say, okay, we've got this elderly person in here. They probably need physical therapy. They probably need to talk to the geriatrician. Now they should probably, in Canada, that it's the social work team. In the U.S., does that happen, or is it the palliative care team?
America spends more on healthcare than any other country, yet we rank 48th in life expectancy. We spend trillions, but 200,000 insured people still declare medical bankruptcy every year. Clearly, the system is broken. But what if there was a way to take back control, to break free from inflated costs and red tape? That's exactly why Crowd Health was created, a smarter, more transparent way to pay for healthcare. No middleman, no bureaucracy. Just a community of people helping each other when it matters most. Join the revolution. Go to joincrowdhealth.com and use promo code BSFREE for a discount on your first 3 months, because your health should be in your hands, not theirs.
In a big system, the social worker is on the team.
Yeah,
right.
The physician, nurse, social worker, chaplain. Those are the 4 components that are supposed to be on the team. When I ask for palliative, I want all that. And the reason the social social worker in this country is important is to help for especially people who don't have financial resources to give them the best care. So the palliative team says, Hattie, you could go home, but we can't send you home because you don't have anybody home to take care of you.
Right.
So the social worker says, oh, okay, we could do this, we could do that. So
Right.
that's ideal, and that's on paper. I
Yeah,
have
I
no
did.
idea. Go ahead.
I did a little bit of hospitalist work for a couple years, and the social work, if you have a good social
Yes.
worker, they are absolutely worth their weight in gold.
Fantastic.
They coordinate.
All of
They coordinate that transition from the hospital to the nursing home to the rehab center to home to whatever it is, and that is I have so much respect for hospital social workers because that is a very challenging job. They get a lot of demands from upper level management because they want to get days of hospitalization down. They want to get these patients out, and they bear a tremendous brunt of that. The one thing I'm hearing, the theme I'm hearing from you, thinking back to some disasters I've seen in the healthcare system, is you are telling people you have to be mind-blowingly proactive. That's really the key, because I think back to that guy. I think we shared this patient. He was in the hospital for it had to be at least 6 months. The reason he was in the hospital was because he fell off of a ladder that was probably as old as he was, and he was 80 some years old, because he was fit enough to shovel the snow off the roof of his house. Okay, so this 85-year-old ladder breaks. The guy breaks his ribs. Okay, that's all. Okay, didn't have a cerebral hemorrhage, didn't break his hip. He broke his ribs. He was admitted to the peripheral hospital out in the country. And, they tried everything they could. He eventually gets a pneumonia or whatever. They treat that. Well, he lays around so long, he gets rhabdomyolysis, where, he's eating his own muscles. So that puts him promptly into renal failure. So now he ends up in the big city where we're residents, because he has to have dialysis. Well, he gets some other disaster infection or something. He winds up in the ICU. He's just about to graduate from the ICU. And he has an ischemic bowel attack because he's been, he hasn't been eating for, months.
Right.
So they take him to the OR to take out his ischemic chunk of bowel, and he has an intraoperative MI. So he has a heart attack and survives. Comes back to the ICU. They're like, okay, I think we've done everything. He starts to perk up a little bit. They send him finally back to the ward, and he dies a few days later. So, I mean, this was months and months and months from breaking your ribs from falling off of a ladder. And in American money now, it would have been millions of dollars. And if you could have stopped that chain of events with an appropriate proxy at a whole bunch of points. But if you didn't have that person, he always had treatable illness. So we kept treating it because it was always treatable illness, and he always had a chance. So even with a good advance directive, he was still screwed.
Yeah. So again, you already said it's the advocate, and I feel so sad for this gentleman. He probably lived alone, right?
No idea. I mean, this was decades
right
ago.
And there's a huge category of those people now, and it's getting bigger and bigger. They're called, in our system or in hospitals around here, they call them the unfriended. There's no friend, there's nobody. And so you, as physicians, you just keep this person alive, because unless they had some predetermined or some documents in place that were clear for you. And we just worked on some legislation. It got stopped. It didn't make it. We're working on legislation in Florida to be able to put these instructions on an online registry, so that if I end up in your ER, Dr. Tim, I'm up here in Winter Park, and Dr. Hawk did my form for me, and you could bring it up on the registry and see, oh, Miss Hattie doesn't want this. Okay. Better call her family, because, she's going to leave us because she doesn't want this. So anyway, but the instructions, the persons, too many people are overtreated. And like we said at the beginning, it's money motivation, but also the patient side. nobody really wants to die. We're programmed to keep living, and the other thing about Christians, we tend to use as much or more aggressive care as non-Christians, which makes me crazy when I say that out loud. And the only explanation I can come up with is not original with me. It's a physician, a woman in Boston who is a Christian and an ICU surgeon. And she said she believes that Christians conflate pro-life with pro-medicine. And we're pro-life. We believe in life. But that means, I have to get everything that Dr. May offers me. She keeps saying she can do this, she can do that. I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to do it. No, medicine is not always for a good life. So she says we tend to be pro-life. We are pro-life because God gave us life. We don't have the power to take our life. We're here at God's appointed time. But we say yes to too much medicine because we think medicine is about prolonging my life. And there's nothing in the scripture that says we have to prolong our death.
So that's a slippery slope. I mean, let's talk about that, because you're right. There's the pro-life in the fact that most Christians would say it would not be right to commit suicide because even in the face of a terminal illness, to have death on their terms. We don't even have to go into the whole depression and suicide type thing, but even in a terminal illness with that you don't want to suffer. So, and then that whole slippery slope of, death and or medicine on my terms versus, the whole pro-life. Let's kind of talk about that. I mean, how does one deal as a Christian, or not?
One thing I teach people is when body parts start to shut down, what is that? It's natural aging, and the kind of the biggest thing is food. And so I teach people, think about this. If you can't swallow, isn't that God's shutting down your ability to take, or your body is saying, I'm not supposed to take medicine. I'm not supposed to take food anymore. And this is if we are allowed let nature take its course, this will happen. We'll lose our appetite. We will naturally wind down. And all these nurses, I've had so many nurses in my classes, they're at the bedside. No offense to doctors, but nurses know a lot more about this winding down than you all do, because you're over in another room trying to keep people alive, right? So the nurses are watching this, and they say, and it's true, even taking water makes me work harder. Mm-hmm. So when someone's trying to die, stop feeding them, but food is love. And if I don't feed this person, I'm killing them. And I even have my directive is also in an essay, not just checklists, but an essay. And I says, not feeding me is not killing me. Not feeding me is allowing me to go to God, to get manna. I want manna. I'm done with this food here. I'm ready. But all this, this listening to your body, listening, we can't listen to our bodies when you all have us attached to a zillion machines. So what I'm saying to Christians is, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you, get instruction. She's going to have to be intubated to breathe. Well, no.
I think go ahead. I was going to say, I think there's so many people that as Christians say, yes, I would like to die naturally. I don't want to speed it up by taking a bunch of pills to end it quicker. I want God's way to happen, but I'm afraid of the suffering. And
that's out of medicine.
Right. And so it's that whole thing of, I guess, fear, maybe not faith in the fact that someone's going to palliate me well enough. But I think that's a real thing, right? And so they fight to stay alive.
Give me the fentanyl patches.
Yeah.
I had one physician tell me, she says, I would want my hospice people to give me the super duper big, put them all over my body. I would go really fast and rip them off so they don't get in trouble, and then gone. Well, I know that was one physician.
Jacket. It's like a
okay,
jacket.
there you go. Right. But now the fentanyl's been so, its brand has been ruined because it's a fabulous painkiller, right? I mean,
Right.
fabulous and really designed and used mostly by you all for horrible, difficult pain, cancer patients, etc. And we talk about that in my class. And in fact, in the first week, we do a self-evaluation about what's keeping me from leaving here with dignity, grace, and ease. One is the fear of pain. And I convince people the medicine has that. Medicine can take away all physical pain, but it can't take away your spiritual pain or any angst. That's why I call my class Soul Care Meets Health Care. Because when your soul is ready to go to Jesus, you can relax. And when you're not afraid to die, you're not afraid to live. And so that's why we want to live every day fully, without fear, because so what if we die? So we don't die, we transcend. And I teach in my class, God is breathing for you right now, whether you believe God or not, whether you believe in Jesus or not, God is breathing. You are not breathing on your own. My husband has a PhD in physics and theology, and he taught me this is really a great idea. And it's in my book. I said, every night you go to sleep, you practice dying.
Wow. Yeah.
Or not for
or
some
not.
people.
But you see, so if you can't sleep, but as you lose consciousness, you turn your body over to something. What do you turn it over to?
I think
What are
I'm
you
fighting
turning
it right
it
now.
Yeah, right. And so the fear of pain is absolute just ridiculousness, physical pain. And what you're hitting on, May, is the spiritual pain. And we have a whole list of things like, I don't want to die because my family may be in disarray without me. There could be financial problems without me. I have regrets. I didn't say goodbye to somebody. I was mean to somebody. So we walk through all that stuff. Get your soul ready so that when God starts shutting your body down, you just leave in peace. And the thing is medicine. Do you know the name? You probably don't. Joanne, oh gosh, all of a sudden her name went away from me. But one of the great researchers in geriatrics, when I met with her, when I first started my research, Dr. Joanne Lynn, she has two first names, Lynn, Lynn is her last name. I said, Dr. Lynn, how do I keep from going to a nursing home? And she said, have a lot of daughters and be very nice to them.
Yes.
Yes.
The girls take care of their moms, whereas the boys just write a check. They'll send you off. Okay, then I said, well, how do I, this is the best one. How do I keep from getting Alzheimer's or dementia? Oh, easy. Die of something else before you get it.
Yeah, perfect answer.
No, and there
and
there you have it.
that's the problem of medicine.
So all of you all in your system, all these 5 guys that we talked about, or doctors we talked about earlier, they're propping all the organs up so that we're now living long enough to lose our minds.
Yeah, I'm a case in point.
Okay,
That's my
yeah,
father.
You hit this one out of the park, because this is, we have been living this personally, but I even look at in my own family's case, my mother had a valve replacement when she was 80 some years old, which made sense medically because she was actually really fit at that point and really active. But then you sit there and you go, okay, well, that was great. But then what it did is it allowed her to live long enough so that she could get super frail. And every time she fell down, she broke something, break her back, break her hip, live in chronic pain for the last 5 years of your life, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually die of some other atrocious something, because you're going to get something that's really bad when you're that fit for that long. And so you sit there and you go, if we would have had no intervention at all, she would have still had a very full, long life, and she would have eventually got, kind of sick and ended up maybe with some palliative care and that would have been that, and she would have lived 7 or 8 or 9 years less. And I go, well, is that really that bad?
No, not for me. The Bible says, Psalm 90:10 says, 70, which is 70. And if you're sturdy, you get another 10. So from 70 to 80, you're on God's borrowed time. After that, you medicine people, you're the ones that are propping us up. And God's saying, you're not here forever. You're dust to dust, baby. You're my child, and I'm bringing you over to something glorious. And this is another problem with our theology. We don't hear enough about our glorious next life. And so we think it's really good here. And one of the first chapters of my book, in the first chapter, I talk about the slave songs. There are 6,000 slave songs in the Library of Congress, and over half of them are about heaven. Swing down chariot, come and let me ride, take me over to the other side. Why did they sing those songs? Because their life here was so horrible.
Right.
They could look at the scripture and say, Jesus has something better for me. Well, guess what? Nothing's better than my life. I have air conditioning. I'm having fresh shrimp for dinner tonight. I have a beautiful car. I can get on the airplane. I can go around the world. My life is fabulous. Why would I want to leave here? So I go to church and hear all the wonderful things about life, but I don't hear about what God's got for me in a whole new glorious body. We can't even imagine it. And that's the problem. We think this is good. We think staying here is better. No, it's not. No, it is not.
Let's talk a little bit about family pressures, because if someone's ready and they know that, man, the life in heaven is going to be like amazing, and they're ready, but the family, doesn't want to, there's that pressure where they don't want to let them go because it's selfish. They don't want to be without mom or dad, or it's like, just hang in there for so-and-so's graduation, or just, there's always these little things. How does one navigate that? Any thoughts or tips?
Well, yeah. And you started off, May, saying your family talks to you all the time about what they want, their wishes. Well, because you're a physician, as part of it. But I love hearing that conversation, because I tell people we need to talk about it all the time. And we need to tell people that love us. Keeping me here is not loving me. And one of the things that we do in my class is there's a cover letter to the instructions we're providing. And it says, I've been thinking a lot about my future and want you to know that I hope you will be part of it. You can see from these pages, I have chosen a durable power of attorney for healthcare, also known as a proxy. You can see how I want the last few weeks, years, weeks, months, and days of my life to unfold. Please know I am not afraid to die. And I don't want you to be afraid for me, as I've been thinking about going to Jesus and being in heaven and look forward to seeing his face. I'm not afraid, don't want you to be afraid for me. Please honor what I've given you here. With these instructions, I pray I've lifted any burden that anyone might feel about my well-being. I want you to know I have nothing but love in my heart for you and what you have been to me throughout the time we've been on this earth together. My goal is my death will be a worship experience for me and anyone who might be present. Let me leave with the words of Jesus. Father, I give my life to you. Father, I give you my life. Our Father will reach down and bring me to himself, and those around will see his grace and glory. It will be yes and amen.
Wow.
Well, now I'm having a hard time talking.
So what I'm saying, when you tell your family that, and you realize I've been given this serious illness diagnosis, and I'm not doing it. I had it. They know I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm 75. I'm not doing any of that. My goal is never to be in a hospital, because so much of what can be done to keep me comfortable can be done at home now. And it's all available, and there's no reason for me to go to a hospital.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, which is interesting, because I had actually a very close friend who had a really unbelievably bad cancer diagnosis. And when he was admitted to the hospital, he shouldn't have survived. But they tuned him up, and he was young enough that it worked out. And as much as I diss on the Canadian healthcare system like crazy, he got chemo in his home. It was palliative chemo. He knew it was palliative chemo, and he ended up surviving. They gave him weeks. He survived for 2 years. It was productive. I'd go visit him. We'd hang out. We could go do stuff. It was great. It was actual chemotherapy that made sense in that situation. And he knew it wasn't curative. It was all great until it wasn't. And then he passed away. And you kind of go, now, I don't know what happened as far as the medical assistance in dying part in Canada, because they come in the room with the social worker now. is my understanding. You get admitted to the hospital in Canada and the death doula shows up, which is a whole other can that I don't know if I want to open up or not, but boy, oh boy.
I wouldn't say not in all circumstances, although it depends on the diagnosis, if you're terminal or not.
I've heard a lot of stories.
What you just described, Dr. Tim, is real, and the palliative team, for example, you can get dialysis at home under palliative care. And so all I'm getting at is the hospital is the last place in the world anybody wants to be. If they want to leave with dignity, grace, and ease. Again, if you're young and fixable, and it's the big idea is acute. All acute care deserves that hospital, like get in there and fix it. But chronic, no, you don't get me for chronic. I'm not letting you have me.
I think most chronic diseases shouldn't be managed by physicians at all because we make a terrible mess of it. Obviously.
Well, that's the whole point. But that's the system, and that's where all your money is. That's where all the big bucks exist, and the pulmonary just makes me crazy too. People on machines and for years or whatever, it's just hideous. And hopefully, I mean, inch by inch, Baby Boomers. My first book, I'll Have It God's Way, is for Christians. I'll Have It My Way. My first book the title was because we Baby Boomers have always had what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We always had what we want. And I'm saying, if you don't get it clear, you're not going to get what you want. You're going to get what medicine wants to do to you. And so hopefully Baby Boomers are going to be a little smarter. And the other piece is we're getting a little more after COVID. People are much more open to what I'm saying about medicine. And I have many physicians, a dozen really high level thought leaders in palliative medicine worked with me on my books. And so everything is medically correct. And I love them. I love great physicians. One of my best friends is a primary, she's now ER, but she was ER, now she's primary. But anyway, when people used to read my book before COVID, they thought I was down on medicine. I was being mean. No, I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID taught people,
Yes.
like COVID taught people. I have other friends whose grands and older relatives died in the hospital and they couldn't be there, and how ridiculous it all was.
No, COVID taught people, and they saw the hand of what happens when they
money.
lose.
They got
Well, the other thing they saw is, and this I kind of knew this, but it never really hit me, was how profoundly important it is to have a health advocate. Like, even if it's a parent, like they would separate parents and children. You have a 6-year-old in an ER being treated for, a respiratory infection or whatever, and no parent there. Like, how is that not against the law?
Well, it was
Right.
But they were using COVID as the excuse to be the gods of the universe. And, the countries, the governments had given them this sort of super authority to move because we've got this disease and we have to stop it. And you're the physicians and it's in your hands and you must do all these things. And we've got these machines. And in this country, if you put me on the I forgot the name of it, the machine, the breathing machine, you got 27,000. Sorry, what was the name of it?
Oh, a ventilator?
A ventilator, thank you. I couldn't think of it. You put me on a ventilator, the hospital gets 27,000 from the federal government. Boom, just instant. And if you diagnose me with COVID in the ER, for example, you get 12,000. Boom. But if I just had a sneeze, you got the whatever. So the money flowed to you all, treating everything like a disaster, when people that are healthy had no business even taking the damn shot. That's my view. But anyway,
we've opened that can many times.
Yeah.
But again, like, it gets back to what this gets back to, the absolute baseline of all of this, from my perspective, is spiritual bankruptcy. If we actually were not spiritually bankrupt as a society, we'd go, you know what? You're born, God has measured your days, and then you die.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I don't wear a seatbelt, doesn't mean I don't wear a motorcycle helmet, but you know what? It means that life is inherently risky and all of us are terminal. Okay, that's where it starts. But there's so many different levels of this spiritual bankruptcy. At one end, you have Brian Johnson, this health influencer, spending $2 million a year so he never dies. I'm like, okay, that's insane. And secondly, is he actually living when he has to take bowls of supplements every day? I mean, that just is, again, it's another form of spiritual bankruptcy.
I want Dr. Tim to be my doctor because I figure at 75 I can eat and drink anything I want.
That's right. You've reached the magical mark.
Well,
Tim has another word for it, which might not be appropriate.
Well, it's not appropriate, but I call it the hookers and blow stage, and I'm not saying that anyone should do cocaine or absolutely.
Right.
Having been very faithful my entire life, like 100% faithful, but it just it's such a superlative. It gets people's attention. It's like, no, seriously, like you have reached. I see literally every week. I see people in their 80s and 90s on cholesterol pills. And I literally look at them and I say, what are we trying to prevent? Like, if you were cheese, you're so far past your expiration date, you would have long been thrown in the trash. But, you're 20 years past the average lifespan. You have kicked it out of the park. And you're taking cholesterol pills. And you know what? 100% of the time the answer is because my doctor told me to.
Right. Always. We can't get cholesterol medicine without a prescription. The other piece that you've hit on is our spiritual bankruptcy has to do with the fact that as Christians, we are in a post-Christian, postmodern, hyper-medicalized culture, period. And to stand on the Bible and not on the culture takes bravery, and it takes swimming against the stream. I'll give you one example. Swimming, when I turned 60, which was 15 years ago, I had a girlfriend. I didn't know her husband. I wanted them to come over for dinner. They come for dinner and find out he's a physician, hospital. Well, he was a physician, but he had anyway, long story short. I said, oh, I hate to ask you a medical question, but I just turned 60 2 days ago. My question is, how often should I go to the doctor? He goes, every 5 years unless you have a symptom. You understand, with third-party payer systems, if anybody you get your insurance from almost forces you to go annually.
Yes.
And it's okay because, and my dear friend who's 78, Dr. Hawk that I mentioned earlier, I said, how often do you go to the doctor? He goes, oh, I don't go to the doctor. They'll find something, they'll treat me, and they'll kill me. Okay, so he's my idol now, but I was already on that trajectory. I don't need to go to a doctor unless I have a symptom. If I have a symptom, I will go. And I'll find out what it is, and then I'll do what I want to do based on what I find out what it is. But I'm never sick. I'm never sick. I drink 100 ounces of water a day. I exercise. I eat a lot of great food. But I do eat sweets and I drink wine every night. Let's see what else. I did have a woman when I was working on this book who turned 100, and she came over to my house, and her son, my friend, said, oh, she drinks 2 Crown Club on ice every night. So she was coming for happy hour. So I had to get her Crown Club, right? She's 100. And so I asked her other things about her diet and her life. She said, well, I don't go to the doctor. All my friends who go to the doctor, you know what? They're all dead.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's
totally the truth.
No, but it's amazing because one of my very close friends is an anesthesiologist, and I love this line. He said, it doesn't matter how fit you are. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. Eventually, everyone acts their age. And that is 100% true. I had a patient that was 100 years old. He walked 6 miles a day. He literally would pick rocks up and throw them at cougars. That's how deep in the woods he would walk by himself, until he fell down one day and broke his hip. And then he was instantaneously transported to the life of a demented 100-year-old. Instantly. Yeah. So he had a great life. He was super active. He was super healthy. He required virtually zero healthcare until he did. And then it was kind of a disaster. And then, then I'm counseling his son, who came
How
from
long
another
did he
state.
have to live, and how long did he have to live after that?
That I lost touch with him. He got out of our system somehow. His son might have was his advocate. His son was like 75 years old.
That's great.
It
That's
was
great.
amazing.
And
no,
now, I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
now this wasn't really part of the sort of the conversation plan, but or maybe even your topic and what you've written on. But now this whole is it the boomers, our generation focus on longevity is the new
Spiritual bankruptcy.
It's like gotta live forever. What are all the cool things to do?
Yeah, no, I have no idea what you're talking about, May. If I see something like, I don't read it. I don't believe in it. I don't read it. And maybe there's like, and Dr. Tim pointed out someone who's spending all this money consuming all these vitamins and all that stuff and getting what are those things, those crypto things you can freeze your body so you can come back later.
Yeah, cryo.
That I am so not interested. And again, I just read the scripture. I'm a theist. I believe in the beginning God. And I believe from Genesis 1 all the way to Revelations 22, 21, that God's got me and God's got us. And if you don't believe it, God still has the system. God's still breathing for you, whether you believe it or not. And if you don't accept the promise of forever, then you'll have a different kind of forever. But I am totally focused on the forever. I'm trying to every day ask God, what is the highest and best use of my time? What am I supposed to do? And this is what God's given me to do. This is what God's given me to do. We give our books away if people can't afford them. I teach my classes for free. This is my ministry. And it's to your point, Dr. Tim, there aren't enough there's not enough advocacy. The problem with my topic, I believe, is that people are really not tuned into it until they get that diagnosis.
So true.
But that's exactly like we just did an interview a week or so ago with one of our sponsors who sells disability insurance. And it's like, okay, when should you buy disability insurance, especially as a physician? When you're a resident.
Yeah.
Because then it's cheap and you're healthy.
Yeah.
And you can get tons of insurance for your, career that's going to make you a bunch of money. And this, like, again, this guy was so healthy. He could go to the garage, pick out a ladder, put it on the roof. And in his mind, he's 30, even though in his body, he's 85. And it is a disaster.
But that's when you should be planning this years ahead of getting to your golden years so that you know what you want. And that might change a little bit as time goes, but don't wait.
But people don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to think about it. I have people go through my class, oh, thank you, this is fabulous. And then when I start another one, we'll send some friends. Well, nobody wants to talk about it, So it's okay. God's given me this task that is hard, but he knows I'm tough, and so this is what I'm doing. But I think it'd be awesome if you started some service. And as physicians, you've got credibility to offer advocacy for patients. And maybe you get hired by the children, because they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do with their senior parent. And when it comes to medicine, there are too many choices, too many decisions, whatever. I would love to be in a group that did this and had a steady flow of customers. Not that I need money, but I want to help people get this information, and not enough people are getting it. Because again, they're not attenuated. They're focused on life is wonderful. My life is wonderful. I'm rich. I don't mean I'm rich. America is a rich country. I can get care. So it's when is our mind ready to accept what we know is true and willing to do some work on it, so that when the time comes, I can have what I want. It's just
right.
That's the question. How do we get people to start talking about it? How do we get people to not be afraid to talk about it? We even have people in our family, Christians, that believed the rapture was going to come before anybody died. And so it's like, I think that was an excuse.
That'd be perfect, but so far it hasn't happened yet. A couple thousand years, it's all God's timing. But no, I think if I guess I'd probably be a good social worker, and
but you know,
I'm thinking
it's
we
interesting to me.
definitely
Yeah.
need more of people doing this,
Yeah,
being the
but
patient advocates, doing what you're
Right.
doing, incorporating all that. I don't know.
but it just kind of makes me scratch my head and just look back and go, how different would this be if we didn't have Medicare? Because Medicare
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? These people that say keep my mama alive,
Oh,
they're not paying for it. They're not
No.
paying for it.
right.
If they had to pay for it, they'd say, well, I'm going to take her home and give her her favorite
Yes.
food and just, love on her till she leaves. They wouldn't be writing a check. Oh, no.
No, if people actually knew what it cost to just have
Third
just
party payer is
6 more months of chemo, or just this next part surgery, or that one more kidney.
So
You're right. They'd be like, is it really worth it? Would I
Right.
rather take that money that I'm spending technically and give it to my grandkids, or go on a vacation, or
would say yes, and the senior would say, I don't want this. I want you to spend your money on college for the 3 kids.
so
But we don't- Go ahead. Go ahead.
I am the crazy psycho that pauses direct to consumer pharma ads and reads the small print. So Optivo was advertising, for end stage lung cancer, and these people are running through the Alps because they're so healthy after they've taken
I've seen that.
and then I listen to it and it says, this is for, metastatic cancer that's failed conventional treatment, blah, 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 blah. And then I pause it and I read the bottom, and it says, patients treated with Optivo compared to patients with conventional chemotherapy live on average, ding, 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 90 days longer. So when I was still in a big health system, I called the head of our pharmacy for the 7 hospital system, and I said, how much does it cost? You can't find it. You cannot find it on the internet. You can't.
Sold out.
She had to go into like order forms, and she said, this is the best answer I got. 18 grand a month for 90 days. So,
Okay, so
you are,
they're 3 months worth of cash flow.
yeah, you are not extending someone's life at that point, in my opinion. You're extending their death.
You're prolonging death, not prolonging life.
but people see it as it's not their money, right? That the healthcare system's paying for it.
And
It's
again,
just so
disclaimer,
it's so disjointed.
I'm not
I know.
saying don't take
I know.
Optivo. I'm just saying what the ad said.
Yeah.
That's all. And pointing out that if that's what it does, that's crazy. Now, maybe in other cases it works fabulously well. I don't know.
That is the absolute freshest example of big pharma and how susceptible we are. We're totally propagandized. We spend time in my class with the propaganda machine that's put in place to say there's something for you. In fact, in one of my classes, it was First Baptist Nashville. I had a retired pharmacologist, PhD pharmacology, who ran the pharmacy for a big hospital in Nashville. And we got to this little section, like what you're talking about, do we take a medicine or not? And he said, oh, pills are to sell, not to take. And we all go, Dr. Bob, we're not supposed to take those pills. I mean, he just said it out loud. And that's the way pharma looks at it. We've got a pill for everything, and we can convince people to take our pills. Merck started it. He said, I want people to take pills even when they're not sick. And Mr. Merck in the 30s, late 30s, early 40s.
Mhm. And I would say
Right.
now we've switched to supplements. We've gone from the pendulum has swung, and everywhere you go, someone's a health influencer. They've got their own line of supplements, and there's a supplement for that. And
That's right.
I'm so over it. I'm in the middle of some health stuff myself, and it's literally come to that. It's like, oh, here's your protocol and your plan. I'm like, are you kidding me? All I'm doing is eating one pill after the next.
The problem is it's the same. It's two different sides of the same coin. Instead of medicalizing you with pharma, because pharma is bad, we'll medicalize you with supplements because somehow something that has even less testing is better for you. Yes, that makes sense. What we have done, I wrote this in a Substack a week or so ago, is we have traded bullshit for horseshit. It's still shit.
Oh man.
It's you said it earlier, Dr. Tim, and that's the bankruptcy of our souls.
Yes.
And where do we put our emphasis? How much time do we spend on our medicine and on the way we look and feel as physically, as opposed to our spiritual maturity and spiritual growth? And it's sad, but again, we live in a post-Christian, postmodern, hyper-medicalized culture. If you know that, then you can have your antenna up to say, back off. No, I don't want that. But if you don't know it, you're absorbed into it.
It's so true. We focus on the physical part and we forget the spiritual, mental, spiritual aspect of it for sure.
But it's fascinating. It's fascinating because go to a prayer meeting anywhere, and when it's prayer request time, if none of us were ever sick, would we have anything to pray about?
Bingo. And my Sunday school class, the same way. Everybody's got a broken something or other,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, again, we are absorbed, we're propagandized, and it'd be awesome if our new Secretary of Health can get pharma ads off TV.
Amen.
That's one of his goals. And again, we're so propagandized and so informed but misinformed, right?
Yep.
And out of balance. And another thing I will say, when I started on this book, which was the first one, one of my physician mentors said, well, Hattie, don't you know what MD stands for? Medical deity.
Mm-hmm.
And I even say in my Bible study, I say, when you put your doctor above God, you break the first 2 or 3 commandments. You're idolizing medicine. And the thing is, I get it. One of my best friends is a physician. Like I said, she's a little taller than me and she's got white hair. And I would go to the hospital and to meet her for lunch, and she'd be walking towards me in her long white, in her white doctor coat. And it was like God walking towards me, So as lay people, we're sick, we feel bad, and you come at me in that white coat and I go, oh, please, make it go away, fix me, fix me, fix me. So it starts there, and we're addicted to you. And especially people with, those 5 categories where I talked about, cardiology, oncology, you get addicted to your doctor. Yeah. And it turns out your only friends are the nurses in the doctor's office, and your only appointments.
Which is fascinating because I went a few weeks ago, I went to the orthopedic surgeon, because I got run over by a car.
Oh, no.
Legitimately. Yeah, like run over by the car and then the trailer. So I wanted to get my knee double checked. I've had some knee issues for years and years. And I'm filling out the pre-form, because and they don't just say, they ask you, okay, who's your PCP? And then the next question was, who's your cardiologist? Because everyone has a cardiologist.
Well, I never saw that. Of course, I haven't been to the doctor for 10 years.
And I was like, I don't have one.
Wow.
I may never have one. I don't know. It's like hilarious.
They're orthopedists. They want to make sure your heart's good before they can operate on your leg.
Well, you got to live at least long enough to leave the hospital with the hip replacement. So.
Or if he has you on, if he's doing your knee surgery and you have a cardiac, he knows who to call. He has
Right. Well,
oh my. Sorry.
I'm just was trying to think of a way to, sort of wrap up this whole process of thinking about end of life planning, dying the way you want to, dying with dignity, with your choices and having them respected. And to put that plan in place, it takes strategic planning and picking the right person, as we talked about, and getting your wishes down on paper. Mm-hmm. And those would be, I would say, right, are the key points. And then having the conversations with your loved ones. I love that letter you have in there. And so it really doesn't take a lawyer to start this process.
You do not need a lawyer. In fact, going to a lawyer can get you on the wrong foot, because they just have their templates. You fill in the templates and you think you're done. But
right.
The defaults aren't going to work for you that well. And you need to think it through. So this is another, how do I show this?
Well,
this
you
way.
can.
Okay, so one of the things that we do, we create what I call a circle of care. And in the
Yes.
circle of care, you've got your chosen proxy. You have your family, you have friends, you have neighbors, you have clergy, you have experts, for example, your CPA or whatever. All
Right.
of them, once you finish your document, they all get copies.
Yes.
Everybody gets a copy. So if you name me, then Tim's got it, everybody's got it. So I'm in there arguing for you to get the care you want. Everybody in the circle of care got the same information I got. They are pulling for me to get you what you want. They're not arguing because they saw the cover letter.
Yes. How
May-
often should someone update that? That was what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, when you get a new diagnosis, you should revisit it. If you change your domicile,
Yep.
if a spouse dies or you get divorced, it's kind of three.
So major
4
life events happening.
Yeah, or every decade for sure. A divorce, domicile change.
Okay.
What I just said. Anyway, yeah, you need to update it. Sure.
So Hattie, people can get your book. I'll have it my way, or I'll have it God's way version, correct?
Right. And Amazon.
On
Okay.
Amazon. And
Or
where
you
can they
email me. Go ahead.
where can they take your courses, classes, videos?
Well, right now I'm only teaching at First Baptist Orlando, but if I do have I started a list if people want to do a class online. If I get 15 or 20 people that want an online class, I'll just do one. We'll just choose a time and everything's online with Zoom class, and then they've got their assignments. All the videos are online. So the easiest thing, if you don't mind telling people, they could email me, Hattie. You've got my email. Your assistant does.
Yes.
Hattie, author HattieBryant.com. If they want to take a class, let me know, and we can put together a Zoom class for people outside of the Orlando area. Yeah.
That would be spectacular. I can see that
Yeah.
as a wonderful small
You
home
are-
activity that we can do.
At your office, yeah, at your whatever, all your ER patients. Oh, you need to take this class.
I mean, even as a
That's right.
a small group plan through a church group type of a thing, or
Sure.
at a senior
Yeah.
center, someone organize it for
Right.
people. I don't know. Yeah.
Right, because I can come. It's fun. I'd rather do it in person, but I did it as I've taught many classes during COVID online, and I just finished one online here, and people really benefited from it, and they don't have to drive at night. Sometimes we do it 5 or 6 in the evening on a Sunday evening. It's 1 hour together a week, and then they have homework assignments and that sort of thing. So yeah.
Wonderful. So everybody check out her books. We'll put the links in the show notes.
Thank you.
And any other positive things you want to say to sort of wrap up, summarize the importance of all
What
this?
I would say is, if you're a person of faith, get over it. We're going to go to God and have a glorious new body. So what you do right now to manage till Jesus brings you over is just make sure you tell all your friends and family how you want to be treated the last few months, weeks of your life. Put it in writing and choose an advocate, and then you can go have fun the rest of your life.
Outstanding.
I love
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hattie. That was so wonderful to have you. And we would love to have you back on again at some time. Something else comes up. And remember, everybody, this episode's really not about fear. It's about clarity, facing the hard stuff now so the people you love don't have to do it later. So choosing how you end life belongs really to you. You don't make someone else do it for you. So talk to your people, tell them what you want. And that's really the beautiful part of it. All right, everybody, as always, keep thinking, keep talking, and always keep it BS free. Thanks, Hattie.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.